So kind of before we get into the information this evening, basically just kind of going over everything, seeing where we've been, where we're at now, and kind of what's coming up. How's everybody coming along so far in the activities and in your case study? I know Sarah shared that she's having a little bit of a challenge. So if you guys also too want to go ahead and put your let me open my chat box up so it look like Denise. If you guys put your name in there, if I'm recording, then I'll add points on there. So anyone else having challenges that we can talk through, provide some help for you on case study? I know she's Sierra's kind of in a unique, challenging location with the type of student they serve. Is anyone else having trouble? Everyone's good. Everything's perfect. Huh?
Well, I'm not teaching in a high incidence classroom. I'm teaching in a mild moderate, but I do have some high incidence borderline kiddos that I'm going to use for the case study. So,
And if you're having trouble there, I'm flexible on some of that. And I had to be, really flexible during COVID as well, knowing that there were circumstances. So the main thing is just trying to be able to achieve some of the goals of the case study. We may have to have some flexibility with if it's not a high incidence student or you're having a challenge here. So we'll work through that. Anyone else, any challenges? Everyone feel good so far up to this point?
I have a lot of high incidence students, so I'm trying to like I don't know what would be best to narrow it down to pick a couple. Like I don't know what I need to be looking for to choose them. You know what I mean? Like,
So we're going to talk just a little bit. I'm going to pop up some of the
okay.
information syllabus, show you what's coming up for this module, module three. And because module three contains the first couple parts of the overall case study, and so we'll talk a little bit about it and providing clarification you need, and that way you can kind of move forward on it. So I'm going to share my screen quickly and pop up the syllabus part. And went ahead, as that's changing over, I went ahead and highlighted a couple, some of the kind of in yellow highlight. Um, my computer's slow switching over to screen share, so you have to bear with me here. The wheel is sitting there spinning. You would know when I need it quickly, it's going to take time, and everything was fine. I tested everything before we got on Zoom, so I'll wait here another second and see, and if not, I'll exit out. Now it's telling me that Windows is not responding. Can you guys still hear me?
yes.
Okay, I wanted to make sure it's giving me a weird message. I'm so sorry about this. I don't know what's going on, but I'll try. Really delayed now. I don't know why. Can you see my syllabus? Did it pop up for you?
Yep.
Okay. All right, there we go. That was weird. I don't know why I did that. So, what I did in the syllabus for this course, it kind of gives a breakdown on the case studies. What I did for kind of the first part of module three is highlighted the areas that we're going to be focusing on the next few weeks. So basically, part one is the overview. And so basically what it's doing, Danny, is just asking you to select two case study students, asking you to go and spend some time observing them to determine what you feel like their overall needs are, and then select IEP goals for each that you will be addressing later on down the road in part three. Part three is several weeks ahead of us, okay? But just some things that really maybe pop out to you that you feel like would need to be addressed once we get down to step number three, just what you're seeing through your observations. So basically, the overviews, you're just going to submit kind of a scholarly written paper describing each of your case study students, and there's some things it's going to ask you to look for. The second step that we'll cover during the first part of Module 3 will be the Tier 1 lesson plan. And so basically, depending on what PLC group you signed up for, where you're doing your discussions and sharing your reflection on what you feel like is going well, what are your challenges are. There was basically three groups, if you guys remember. There was like a high school, there was a elementary, and then there was like a early childhood group that you could sign up for as far as your PLCs. So you're going to look at the student level that you signed up for, and there are sample lesson plans in there that's already made up. There are some lesson plans in there, and it's all dealing with plant cycles. So if it's elementary, it's over a plant cycle. If you're like middle school level, if that's a group you signed up for, it's over gene mutations. And then if you signed up under the high school level, it will be over plate tectonics. And so once you do that, it's going to be something that you feel like it's going to be appropriate for your case study students in a tier 1 setting. So if you remember on the different tiers, basically tier 1, it's for whole group instruction, right? You're targeting the entire group. Then when you get into tier 2, a little bit later on, it's going to be some small group. And then the tier 3, if you remember, when we kind of talked about MTSS and the different levels, your tier 3 is going to be more individualized, more one-on-one focus, more intensive instruction. Okay. So that's really the first couple of steps out of the four. The first two we're going to work on the next few weeks of this module 3. Okay, Danny, does that kind of help you? I know it doesn't pinpoint anything specific, but basically you just need to pick a couple of your students that you feel like would be good to
Would it
collect.
be
Go
students
ahead.
that are in a class that would receive tier 1? Like I have kids that are in my room all day long, like specials even. They refuse to go anywhere but my room.
Yeah.
So except lunch. So um don't pick them then because they don't go into a classroom like a whole.
If you can, that way you can focus on, and again, you're more writing this. Now, we get later on down where you have to do the video where you're actually presenting the information, that could be or in that tier 2 or 3 setting. But for this first part, you're just really kind of focusing on if it was a whole group. You could still use those students that you serve, even though they're really more tier 2 and 3, but you're just writing as if you had to do it on a tier 1 level. Does that make sense, or did I just totally confuse you?
No, that makes sense.
Yeah. So
So
no
tier
need to really,
one, I got questions. So tier one is basically like what the gen ed teacher teaches.
exactly. It's more the
Okay.
whole group. If you remember that tier 1, when we talked a little bit about MTSS and levels, that tier 1 is that more that whole group. Okay. So as if that gen ed teacher was. And then the tier 2 and 3 is more what you're going to be focusing on as the SPED teacher or resource teacher. Okay. So this first part, as you're working on it, you're just going to kind of have the mindset that it's for a gen ed setting with the idea that you're a SPED student's going to be in there. Does that answer
Yep,
your
we're
question?
actually teaching it in our resource room.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct. Yeah. And Denise, when you get down into this latter part of this case study, when we do the video and everything, you'll actually be doing that in your room.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
So a lot of times, when I start reading those videos and I see your room and everything and all that, there's usually 2, 3, maybe 4 students in there during that time. So, okay. Any questions on that? Kind of really what we're going to focus on the first few weeks. Again, this particular module is the longest in this course of the 16 weeks is because we're focusing on these 4 areas of the case study. I'm going to stop our screen share and kind of go and show you where the resources are, where you can locate like the lesson plans, because those lessons, everything's already loaded in there. Like I said, the elementary is already in there, the junior high or middle school level, and then the high school. But you'll see there's focusing on 3 different lessons or topics, I guess you should say, depending on what level you are. So I'm
Okay,
gonna
so the
stop.
lesson plan we're teaching, we are going to actually be teaching it to our students, like those
Yes,
students at that time.
yes.
Okay.
The way this is kind of worded in the syllabus, it's a little bit confusing. Always have questions on that. So bear with me just here. Let's for me. This should pop up for you here any second. It's in the process now. So I'm so and I clicked on case study student assignment. It says instructions based and relevant information. Here is where you will find it where we're actually starting steps 1 and 2. Okay. Here you will see is the tier 2 and 3 lesson plan template. Again, that's not at the moment. We're focusing on tier 1, but I'm just wanting to show you everything. The grading rubrics that'll be used. So when you start working on this, you can reference that and make sure you're hitting all the points. Here's the set of instructions. Just a separate document that has the specific instructions, which we kind of have went over them. I covered those in those highlighted areas for step 1 and 2. Here is where you will find your tier 1. If you're elementary, you will click on this link. If you're high school, here's the link for the tier 1. If you're middle school, you'll click on this link here. Okay. Remember, all is found in the folder that says case study student assignment. Okay. And it will just kind of expand and you'll see all attachments. Also in this, you'll see there is a self-reflection form. Again, that's not during step 1 or step 2. That's at the very end, but I just kind of wanted to show you where the documents are. Okay. Any questions on that? Where to find those? No, everyone's as clear as mud. Everyone's good. Module 3, I mentioned this as long as we get into we get started immediately and not maybe week after. So kind of turnaround will be in week 11 then, and we'll meet again and we'll talk about steps 3 and 4. Okay, so between now and the next 2 weeks, we're gonna be working on step 1 and step 2. But when we're getting into this and starting work on this case study, this module really is divided into 3 areas, three things we're going to focus on. The first one will be academic strategies. Also, the second part will be behavioral strategies, and then the third part will be social skill strategies. And again, that will be just a little bit later on in the module. Right now, we'll be focusing on the first one, the first category, which will be the academic strategies, as we're going through and looking at tier 1 and tier 2 and 3. Okay. Any questions on that information that we covered to get you started on the first 2 steps of the case study? Nish, you have any questions? Everything good, clear, or is just confusing as all get out? Again,
I think
sometimes the way this is worded in this course shell and the syllabus, it gets a little confusing and or the waters are muddied a little bit. So sometimes when we start the actual case study itself and start getting into steps 1 through 4, I'll have a lot of questions to clarify. So
So I was looking at the lesson plan
mhm,
and for elementary,
mhm.
and like it says reading, silently read and complete worksheet, put finish worksheet. Like my kids can't do that. They can't silently read anything. Like I might have one kiddo that could, but
And so those will be things when as you're doing your overview, talking a little bit
mhm.
about your student, that you will address in that overview. As you're describing the students in your case study, talking about, as you get in and start reviewing the lesson plans, at the very beginning, that you're going to have to make some accommodations or modify that um, due to the lesson plan asking for them to read silently that information, and they can't do it. So you'll start explaining in that overview what you've had to do already as you're getting preparing for tier one.
Okay. Okay. So we
Yeah.
we are allowed to modify that lesson
Yeah,
plan.
no,
Okay,
absolutely. Yeah,
I
just
just want to make sure.
no, what you see in that example lesson plan, guys, that's not like stuck in
Okay.
stone. I mean, you know based on your case study student, hey, I know they can't read that. So as you are starting to prepare, and so step one is you're going to do kind of the overview, explaining a little bit about your students that you have selected. You've already looked at tier one in that lesson plan. You already know you're going to make some adjustments. So that's where you're going to describe it and tell and explain that to me. I'm the outsider looking in. Okay. Same thing with middle school and high school. When you look at it and the directions it says, have your students read this silently and all that, and you're like, they can't do it. You'll explain that. Okay. Denise, what level were you in? I can't remember. And Sarah, you talked a little bit about it. I think you're more high school. Is that correct, Sarah?
Um, right now, since okay, so behavioral wise, it's not okay for me anymore to bump up to middle school or high school. Things are tanking pretty fast. So I am stuck in my elementary school student. He is working, but like I said, it's taken about a week and a half to get through one lesson, like one reading lesson.
Okay.
So,
So that'll come a little bit later, some steps on down in this case study where you'll have a lot of input and a lot of things to add when we start talking about behavioral strategies, social
mm,
skill strategies. And so once all this comes together, one of the last steps and parts of this course is going back to your PLC group, uploading your videos so your peers in that group can review it as well and offer feedback, ideas, and suggestions. And so that's where you really get a lot of valuable feedback from some of your peers. Maybe they have experienced some of those situations, Sierra. There may be one in your group that's worked in a behavioral school, and once they watch that and review it, they're like, "Hey, I know exactly what she's going through. I've had that before. This is some things that I implemented and had success with. You might try this." And so it's a good opportunity to learn from some of your peers that's had that same experience. So right now you think, oh, I don't understand how all this will come together. But as we work through the steps and then the end product, and when you're sharing it in the PLC, you'll go, I understand now how all this works. So anything else? Any other feedback, questions,
I have a couple
clarification?
questions.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're supposed to come up with IEP goals that we would be addressing in part 3. Are those goals related to the lesson, or I mean, in general, whether it be math or reading or social
Yeah.
emotional?
In general, what you're seeing off your observations in this step one. So step one is you're just going to provide an overview of your student based on your observations, what you feel like their strengths are, what you feel like their weaknesses are, and based on your observations, suggestions for IEPs that you would see feasible for that student when we get down into these later steps.
So it could be what their regular IEP, what we are using for their IEP goals?
It could be. It could be. Yeah. And then once you start working with them and you see some things that maybe might need to be changed up or modified on some of those goals, you would include it. You would write about it on this.
Okay. And do we, I haven't seen it on here, but is there a permission form that we can readily have available to, I mean, for the parents? Do we need that? I mean, if
Yes, and I will get you one in here when this copy over is not in, but we have a permission form that I used in my 805 class that talks about um, assessments and using their child for this, for the graduate classes of Fort Hays. So I can upload that and include it, and I can just post a message in the Blackboard announcement section that is there for you.
that would be great because I don't know where the links for those are.
Yeah, no, in I will make sure that there's one in there. I didn't see it
Okay.
when I went to this particular folder. But yes, we always have done that, especially when you're getting ready to do the lesson. One thing I always encouraged on in this class when you get ready to video is perhaps maybe set the camera to where it's going to catch everything from maybe shoulder level down, but I can see you when you're presenting that lesson. Maybe have their backs to the camera, but yet I can see you. And so that's what we've done on a lot of these videos for 822. But we still get the permission form signed so those parents are aware that there will be a video going to meet the requirements of this class.
I'm not sure how that would work with the group that I'm thinking of because they don't sit still. And so I'm thinking
I've had some
having
other ones.
having the hope that it would stay
I
good,
did accomplish that, but some classrooms are up moving around a lot. And so just as long as their parent knows that for purposes of this class, that their student may be captured on video, so they understand that.
So our district has a media permission from the very beginning. If the
Yeah.
parents have already said it's fine, do I need to get the
You don't,
permission?
if you've already got that, that's fine. But
Okay.
if your district does not, you can use the one that I put up in the course shell. Okay.
Perfect.
A lot of districts now they do that, as Denise mentioned, and they'll do that as part of their enrollment packet at the beginning of the year because if you have maybe a social media page for your team or your department or this elementary building does, and students, you know, are going to be having pictures posted or video. So a lot of districts do that in their enrollment packet. So if you've got one, you can just roll with it. Okay.
Great.
Any other questions? So really between now and when we meet, not next week, but the week after, week 11, is to go ahead and do your observation, your case study student, and just provide that overview of them. And you'll be submitting that and then go ahead and start looking at that tier one lesson plan and getting some ideas about, or am I going to have to make some changes to it, modifications, what do I need to do different, and start preparing for that. Okay.
So
Everyone
I might
good?
be able to have some good luck then with my student. If it's around science, my student might be more apt to want to participate versus the basics.
And if there's some things on there, it lists recommendations on the lesson plan. And if hey, with my student, they like science, if I incorporate this, you'll just talk about it in that overview. I modified the lesson plan, made some adjustments in order to keep my student engaged due to their behavioral issues that they have and to keep them motivated to participate and work. Sounds like yours is motivation to work.
Uh, it's just motivation in general. So kind of what we've figured out since we've had him is the only thing that's motivating is if it's his idea. And the minute you have this positive, all of this other traditional stuff, none of that works.
I
I
got you.
mean, even the counselors are like, none of that works. It has to be his idea. That's about the way it's going. So most of my previous students are students who have learning disabilities, whereas this one is the complete opposite, above average intelligence and all
Yeah.
of that good stuff. So it's straight behavior.
Yeah. So the trick is to convince him or do it in a manner to where he thinks it's his idea, and if he does, he's all in.
Yep, pretty much. So like in an example, we had some special guests come and they brought a bunch of snakes and stuff that he thought it was cool. So he zoomed through and got an entire day's worth of work done in half a day, and he got it all done correctly.
Yeah.
But then like there was like one problem left. As soon as we were done with that activity with the snake people, he never finished it.
Now I will say this before we get off here, and just it just hit me. Talking about making people think it's their idea, like a student. If you think about that, what I just said, you probably work with a group or some individuals in your district and in your building. And when you try to set some goals or try to accomplish some certain things, or the always kind of the naysayers in the bunch, the negative Nelly. But there's always that one, if you can convince them somehow, some way that it was their idea, they're 100% all in. So works that way with adults too. You'll find out you're in this long enough, you'll find that out. You'll find out sometimes too, your spouse may be that way. So part of human nature, right? We always encounter some of those. If it's their idea, it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But if you bring it up, it's not worth anything. So it's that learning how to work with those people and present it in a way to where they see it as being their idea, and they're good. They're all in. So, all right. I'm gonna let you go unless anyone else has any specific questions as you get started. If you run into some challenges or you just have a mental block and you need some help or you have questions, just please reach out to me by email and I'll get with you. And if we need to set up a Zoom between now and when we're scheduled to meet again, I'll do that with you. Kind of walk through some things if you get stuck, okay?
Great.
I had a question about like when after we do the Zooms, there are quizzes. If we attend the Zoom, do we still have to do the quizzes? Oh,
It is
okay.
for the
I've been
ones.
doing that.
Yeah, no, she did. If you're with me live, that's why I had you do the chat box. Okay. While the recording's going in, it saves that chat box. And then I just go and look at the names on there to make sure I don't miss anybody and I plug your points in. So if you miss, you go and watch your recording, then you answer the questions. That's how you get your participation point. Okay.
I apologize for my tardiness. I got the time mixed up with the other class I
Oh,
take
you're
from you.
good. No, no problem. I know too. I've had a couple reach out, and I get it. This time of the year, different schools are doing parent teacher conferences. I had two Zoom meetings last night in 8:05 and 8:01, and a lot of them had parent teacher conferences, and they just email me and let me know, and so they just pop the video up, and then they go in there and answer the questions and move on. So I get it. I understand things come up, and you're trying to balance a lot, so I totally understand. That's why I always record everything, and then I'll post it in Blackboard. Usually do it in the announcements, and then I check the box for it to email you, so that way you know. All right.
Sorry. I've got one more question about assignments. So
Okay.
our things that we are supposed to be doing, I can't even think of the discussions where we
Yeah.
post like how things are doing. The
Mhm.
last one said was due Monday night. And
It's actually
so
due. It's actually coming up due.
okay,
It'll be 20th. It's coming
okay,
up
okay.
this Sunday.
So we
That
have
was a
time
typo.
to
So you're good. You got time to do it. So
okay. I did it. I just haven't responded to anybody yet.
no,
So
no, you're
I'll
good. It was actually due, and thank you for bringing that up. I actually had a note and I slid it off to the side, so I noticed I had that date wrong. It's actually the 20th.
What's due on the 20th?
It was a peer discussion coming up.
Was it, did we do it last weekend by some chance,
Well,
maybe?
I had someone that did it.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
okay.
I think it was supposed to be.
it
Yeah, you
actually
did it.
shows the
I remember
20th.
seeing your
Yeah,
Because this weekend is the paper about the kids.
right.
that's correct.
Case. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, okay.
Great.
Thank you guys. If you have any questions, let me know.
Thanks.
Bye. Have a good one.
Thank you.